Well, James, welcome to Director's Notes.
Thank you. Yes.
So, we are here to talk about your film Unicorns.
Yeah, we are.
I'm just going to give you a bit of space to introduce you, yourself, and the film to us, please.
Me, myself. Right. How to introduce myself? Well, I'm James Krishna Floyd. I am a filmmaker and an actor. I wrote and co-directed Unicorns. It was very much my kind of creative baby. And yeah, the film is a romance. It's about two people who come from opposite ends of the world in a way, but are also from the same sort of geographic location. And it's about a young single dad from Essex who's a mechanic, and how he has a very unusual relationship with a South Asian realism drag queen. And it all happens in Essex and East London and Manchester, and it's based on real people. It's based on things that have happened to me, and people that I know. And yeah, and we've just been very lucky to have a good response from people. Yeah.
So, you said you're an actor, and
Yeah.
am
Yeah.
I right in saying this is your directorial debut, not just feature? This is the
Yeah.
first film you've directed.
It is. It's the first thing that I've written and directed that's got made, and yeah, this has always been my dream, really. I'm a big film head. Um, you know, and I just that was always my dream, was to be an actor and a writer and a director in film. And I love television too, to be
Mhm.
fair. But I believe that independent film is where everything starts. I think that's where certainly all innovation in terms of visual storytelling really comes from. And
Yeah.
I think we've got to keep it alive. It's very important. It's not. I think it's not a secret to say that independent film is going through a very rough time, and I feel very proud that Unicorns is kind of doing its thing and being enjoyed by audiences and critics and whatever. And I just hope it lasts a long time, really.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I could talk for hours about the industry. It would
Yeah.
not be a very fun chat.
No, not right now. No, not right now.
So for you, that obviously you'd had that desire to want to write, to direct. So you've got your years of acting experience. What did that mean transitioning into directing? What did you bring into it? What skill set do you think you had?
It's interesting because I was talking about this morning actually, and I think one of the things that's a huge advantage about being an actor and going into filmmaking is this communication. Really, I mean, Kubrick said that, filmmaking is daily problem solving, which is very true. And I think that, to problem solve, you have to have a certain level of communication. You've got to be very versatile, I think, with different types of people. And that's really, that's a skill that gets sharpened a lot as an actor, obviously. And that's one thing that I've found has been a big advantage. I think the disadvantage is probably, and luckily I don't really have this because I've always been very interested in the technical side, but I think a lot of actors who do go into filmmaking, I think can get a little bit caught up in just character, which is obviously where I think everything starts.
Yeah,
But, telling a story, especially in a visual medium, you've got to understand, I believe, you've got to understand the basics of the technical side.
yeah,
And in order to sort of start breaking those rules, you've got to know those rules. But yeah, look, like I really do feel that like I'm so lucky to just make a film, and the fact that I'm very proud of it. I know my whole team's very proud of it. I know my co-director Sally's very proud of it too. Um, is just like it's ridiculous. You feel like you sort of won the lottery in a way, and now I just want to I want to keep that going if I can and keep make as many films as I can as a writer director. Yeah.
yeah. And talking about those technical aspects, which, like you said, are ones that need to be learned. How did you learn them? How were you able to bring yourself into that director's chair?
Yeah, I'm still learning them, and I think we all are, because what's incredible is that once film went digital, I know this is quite a controversial topic for a lot of filmmakers, but once it went digital, really anything became possible, and it's kind of an infinite medium, and the technical side is evolving so quick.
Mhm.
I love that. Um, I've just always been interested in it, really, and even when I was sort of a young actor, sort of 20, 21. I was always fascinated with why the director was choosing a certain size. Why were
Yeah.
they bring it a certain way? What was the cinematography doing in that moment? Even why was the grip doing that? I don't know why. I just always was interested in it, and I think it's probably because there's obviously with filmmaking, there's a left and right brain happening. You've got to understand the science of it, but you've also got to understand the art of it. I
Mhm.
think as an actor, you do need both of that, but you need to really focus on just the emotional journey and kind of be in it. That's
Yeah.
certainly the way I like to act. So yeah, and I've always had a left and right brain. I've always loved maths. I've always loved science too. Yeah, I've always loved Shakespeare. So I think in some ways, being a filmmaker, I think brings those two things together a bit more. So yeah, I love it really. I really do think that, and it sounds really pretentious, but I do think that filmmaking is kind of one of the ultimate art forms because, like I said, we're in a space now where with the kind of cameras that you can use and the kind of things you can do in post-production and also how advanced we are now with character and storytelling and understanding of acting and all these things. I really do think we're in a spot now that actually you can almost make a film about anything. Um, Obviously, you need a certain budget for certain things, but that's really exciting. I love that because you think about it. If I was around as a filmmaker in the 60s or the 70s, which was a great period,
Yeah.
especially in America. You look at the indie cinema period in the 70s was amazing. That studio system was phenomenal then. But they were so limited on what they could do. It's pretty incredible they made all those great films, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, these days we all carry around with us and are addicted to a little thing that you can film a film on, which I think is incredible. And it's like you said, it opens it up to everyone. And yeah, there is a big debate, between traditionalists and we've got AI sort of coming in. But I just think the opening up of that world is what people should be excited about.
I agree. And I think, look, it's like anything, right? You've hit all the buzzwords, right? AI and digital. And, you look at what happened when the internet came along. I mean, everyone kind of flipped out, right? And I think once the world just steadies and just calms down a little bit, which might take quite a long time, um, but once it does, I think people will realize that ultimately all these things are they're tools
Yeah,
and they're tools for your art.
yeah,
And it's very easy to look at the negatives of all this stuff.
of course.
I'll give you an example. So I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and they work in sound, in post-production sound. And you know, they were talking about this AI plugin, which is just an extraordinary thing, where without going into the kind of the boring technical detail, where what it can do is it can do things with ADR, which is it's basically when you either replace or you enhance dialogue that you either have or haven't shot in post-production. And the things it can do with that is so quick, so real that it's like it's phenomenal. And now obviously that tool can be abused
Mhm.
because you might not need an actor for certain stuff and it shouldn't be. But I was really happy when I heard about this plugin. I was like, wow, actually, yeah, we could have done that, and that a lot quicker, a lot easier, but with the actor and
Yeah,
made
yeah,
actually things,
yeah.
so I think we've got to work with technology, just like when the internet came along.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So going back to the film,
Yeah.
you immerse us in a world which I didn't know about. Gaysian is my new favorite word. I've been speaking to friends about it. And you followed, so Asifa Lahore.
Mm, mm,
So one of the things with unicorns, and obviously I think I'm safe in saying that's what resonating with audiences is that there's an authenticity there. You can tell you've lived in that world.
mm.
You've done the research. How much of that, yeah, how much did you have to do to bring that to the screen?
Yeah, so everything that happens in this film has either happened to me or has happened to Asifa Lahore, who you mentioned. Asifa basically, who's now a very close friend of mine, she when I first met her, she was a cisgender man who was a very famous realism drag queen in the queer South Asian, as you said, Gaysian subculture. So just so you know, in South Asian drag, well, not even that, South Asian culture, for a long time, we've had realism drag, which is
Okay.
it's very different to the American style that we all know of, which I love, which is the RuPaul style. You know,
Yeah.
that style quite literally came out of a human rights protest, right? So it was all about being in your face and deliberately kind of putting on a mask and being over the top. That was the whole point. It was a protest, and I love it. Realism drag is the opposite. It's all about passing in a very, very subtle, realistic manner. And we've had this for a long, long time in South Asian culture. So Asifa was the most well-known realism drag queen when I met her, which was probably about 9, 10 years ago. She's actually recently come out again, is now a trans woman and has transitioned. So um,
Okay.
it's just a wonderful, wonderful woman and a really good friend of mine. So everything in the film has either happened to her or me, all the other queens that I've met. And I dabbled in the Gaysian scene a little bit when I was younger. I went to a place called Club Carly, which was very kind of known within the underground club scene. And that was the most well-known Gaysian night in the sort of like 90s, 2000s. And I always thought, oh, well, I'd be interested to make a film set in this world. But I never really got to the core of that scene. And the only way was through someone like Asifa. So once we had connected and I was thinking about, making this film, it was just sort of the easiest way in, really. And I think that's probably why people feel that it's very authentic, but also, casting and getting the right HODs. You look at Jason Patel, who plays the lead drag queen Aisha. Jason is kind of living a very similar life to what he's portraying on the screen.
Yeah.
Val Brown Queen, who plays Xena, the best friend, one of my favorite characters. Val is really living that life too. Even our costume designer Niraj Miraj, who is a queer South Asian man. He he said to us, he had been sort of dreaming about, using the kind of cloths and fabrics that he used in this film, and he hadn't had a project that he'd been able to use it in, So it was just, I think it was this project is a very unusual thing where I think the movie gods were just sort of smiling down on us when we got it made, you
Yeah.
know.
The movie gods.
The movie gods.
If you could introduce me, that would be great.
Do you know what? I know some of them, and they're a bit like Zeus. Sometimes they can be very charming and nice, and you want to hang around with them. And other times they can just throw thunderbolts at you and treat you like a mere mortal. So,
um, so we spoke about Jason, who plays, that lead role, breakthrough role. Am I right in saying?
yes, yes, for sure.
Um, there is such a vulnerability to
Mm,
that performance. Was
mm.
that natural?
Yeah, for sure. I think with all performances that are that raw, I think it has to be there. I don't think you can act that. I guess what mine and Sally's job as the directors was to just create an environment where Jason could be comfortable enough to
Yeah.
to bring it out because it was his first film.
Hmm.
But I mean, Jason, wow, like I often kind of joke on this press tour that, we found him on a rainbow. And we kind of did in a way because, our incredible casting director, Laura Windows, found Jason somewhere. There's so many different stories. I don't know what it is. I don't know what the real one is. I kind of don't want to know. But what's incredible is that I think like Jason has talked about this a lot in press. He said that he felt like in a weird way he was rehearsing for this role his whole life, because there just hasn't been a role like this, certainly not in mainstream cinema.
Hmm.
And I know directors always say this, but I do think if we hadn't found Jason, I think we would have been really struggling with this film because like there were a couple of moments where we were casting that role where we just thought, God, is this just uncastable?
Yeah.
Because the way that myself and Sally like to work is we really want things to feel like that you can smell that character off the screen. We really love the details and we don't really like acting. Do you know what I mean? We like just sort of being in. And I think just finding Jason again was just a huge amount of luck, but also I've got to give a lot of credit to Laura, our casting director. We've known Laura for many years.
Hmm.
I think, she's done a lot of incredible work in the shadows. And I think now this is hopefully kind of the first film that's really going to launch her as a casting director in her own right. But yeah, it's vulnerability is something that I mean I know this is an actor too. I just think it's we all have it, and I think we just need to be in the right place and the right atmosphere and the right vibe and have the right actors around us too. I've got to give Ben Hardy a lot of credit too. Ben who plays the other lead role, Luke, who's a very experienced actor. Ben was great with Jason. They had this amazing chemistry together that was just you couldn't buy. It was just
Yeah.
extraordinary. But he was very I don't know. I don't think it was conscious on Ben's behalf, but Ben's a really nice bloke. Like and I know it's a weird thing to say,
No, I
but
get it. I get it.
there's
In a
not a
world
lot.
where there are a lot of not nice blokes, I get what you're saying.
I'm not trying to be funny, but like, I mean, I've been doing this for a long time now, and it's like, it's amazing to me that people are only starting to realize this, like the public's only starting to realize that actually this business has a lot of really, I don't know I don't know how to say it really, just sort of like, just people who just have a lack of empathy for other people's jobs and feelings. And it's such a weird thing because you'd think that in an art form, people were a bit more sensitive to other people's feelings, but I guess because it's a business too, it attracts some pretty. Anyway, but Ben was a big role in that. But yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but yeah,
No, you did. You did. And I
yeah,
wanted to sort of, so leading on from that vulnerability, one of my favorite scenes in the film was the transformation scene. So when Jason is going from Ashiq to Aisha.
yeah, yeah, exactly, yeah,
Um, that's I just thought, it's beautiful. The way you filmed it, the way it was set up, we were just there. Like, tell me about filming that scene because it was for me so central.
yeah. I'm glad you picked up on that. Actually, no one has really kind of zoned in on that scene because it seems almost like a sort of almost like a montage, but it's not because actually we really go into the details of that
Yeah,
preparation. But because there's
yeah.
this lovely song, the Leo Callian song over, people feel like it's montagey, but it's not. Um, yeah, I mean that scene was in the script for right from the beginning, and it was in there in a lot of detail. But where it was in the story, where it sat, changed quite a lot. And I think even in the edit, we made a little shift to it. But I'm glad you said that. I mean, that is really, I mean, often when I was talking about this film, just purely as kind of pitching it, I would try and communicate it as a superhero film
Mhm.
because a lot of people didn't understand this is a subculture within a subculture, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you said, you'd never heard the word Gaysian, or just imagine what a lot of
And I
film.
live in Brighton.
Well, there you go, right? Exactly. So, and one of the things I said was, I said, look, I said, you've got to look at the Ashiq Aisha character as a bit like a Bruce Wayne Batman scenario, where they are the same person, but
Mm,
when Ashiq, you know, um, goes to kind of to war, so to speak, in other words, trying to find love and trying to find work and live, Ashiq dons his Cape's Crusader outfit, which is Aisha, which is this beautiful kind of Bollywood starlet, you
yeah.
know. And I think that was something that when people understood that, I think it really helped them rather than looking at it as these sort of like two separate people, because
Mm.
they're not, they're the
No, no, not
same.
at all.
And also what that helped with as well was just to make people understand that as you sort of describing in that sequence is that you know when you put on your armor, so to speak, you don't necessarily become someone heightened. You sometimes become a truer version of yourself,
Mm,
and that's really what that whole sequence is about. It's actually, even though Ashik is putting on layers and literally putting on makeup and a wig and all these things, really Ashik is actually taking off emotional layers
mm.
and becoming truly who who he is.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, no, it was a really, it wasn't that difficult to shoot actually, and that day it was just me around. Sally was away, and it was very simple, and it was just all about covering it in a certain way. And really, it was all about following Jason's real routine. And it was
Mm,
it was an example of where I had written a very detailed sequence, but I knew that once I'd cast the right actor and I wanted to cast someone who could do their own routine, I
yeah.
wasn't going to be too strict with what I'd written. So I'd say it was about 60% of what I've written and about 40% of what Jason's actual
Yeah.
routine is for
Yeah, yeah. It's
when he
process.
comes up. Yeah. So it was, and it was lovely. But it's in this tiny little flat. Like, oh my God, it was. It was the best location. Exactly what I wanted. It was a
Yeah,
tiny little flat in just off Ilford Lane, which is where we shot a
yeah.
lot. And yeah, David Redeker, our brilliant DOP, bless him, he was squished into a bathroom and he could only have like two or three angles, and it was great. But I tell you what really makes that scene as well, two things is, well, three things. The sound design, which is very subtle, but I love sound design. I'm obsessed with sound design. I think cinema really is sound, to be honest. Um,
100%.
yeah, I think people don't quite understand that. It really is just it's sound is a huge part of it. And also the tone of the editing, which Ian Kitching, who's a fantastic editor that myself and Sally work with all the time.
Mm,
Ian is kind of a bit of a genius and he made some wonderful decisions in the edit and also the song. I think that song by Leo Callihan is just perfect. And that was a song that I had honed in on years before when it came out. I thought I've got to somehow this song just has a feeling about it that's very it's kind of heightened and magical, but it's grounded.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, no, you're really giving me a lot of memories now, thinking about when we shot that sequence. Yeah.
Well, no, it was one of those things that when I'm watching films, whether I'm watching them for an interview or whatever, I'll often make notes on them.
Yeah.
I mean, I do my own little reviews. I've got all my own processes, and that was just something that I was like, I want to know about that scene. For me, it felt like the heart of the film, and I wanted to ask you as well because so Ashiq's putting on Aisha. It's that transformation of identity, but as you said, it's also becoming sort of their true self, which is what we see in Ben's journey. He is a mechanic from Essex whose mates have obviously told him being gay is whatever. But
Yeah.
then through the film and through those scenes in the car and them just joking together, it's the shedding of layers, which is also the true self coming out. And those journeys just they confluence together amazingly.
Thank you. Can you put that in a review and put it on like, Letterboxd and Rotten Tomato? That'd be nice. Thank you. Thank you. That sounded great. Yeah, I mean, you're right. I think Ben's character, Luke, who is based on people I know very well, part of my family, um, you
Oh yeah,
know,
we've all met a Luke.
we've all met Luke.
Even now in 2024, we've all met a Luke.
We've met a lot of Lukes, and I think yeah, it's interesting. You're right. I think in many ways, Luke has his own, I guess, his own form of a mask and his own form of a drag, and we all do that. Really, is the truth. All the world's a stage, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
I think in particular when you're a single parent, um, and that was a very important thing for me because I've got a son and he's 8 years old now, and even though I'm not a single parent, you know. I've had periods where I've had him on my own for a long period of time. And I've got friends who are single parents, and I spoke to a lot of them when I was writing this. It's they really are real life superheroes. Like what they do is pretty extraordinary, and they're very seldom do they get the time to really be emotionally honest.
Yeah.
They're so on the go around their kids
Hmm.
that actually they wear their mask more frequently, ironically, than a drag queen does.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
and that was something that was really important, I think, to put into the film. And again, Ben's performance is extraordinary because what he does, and Ben has this really interesting quality that it is just sort of, I think, very hard to find these days with actors of sort of our age and younger, is that like Ben can play a character that's seemingly very simple on the surface. He's a very straightforward guy. As you say, he's an alpha male. He's A to B,
Yeah.
Um, his sort of testosterone leads him in the direction that we expect as society. But actually, underneath all of that, the rivers are running deep and they're really bubbling and they're kind of off. That's something that complexity and that depth is very hard to play. And I don't know why Ben has it, but he has it, and it's something that I think a lot of actors, a lot of great actors can actually be quite distracting sometimes because what they can do is they can take a role like this and they can put all the complexity on the surface,
Hmm.
see all the little flickers of emotion and little changes. That no, that's not actually true. A Luke is the opposite.
Oh, very
He,
much so.
so that's something that was really interesting. I remember like, I'd seen a lot of Ben's work and I can say this now, he won't mind me saying this, but no one else really knew about his work on the team. the producers, the financiers, and so it was me. I actually put together this little reel, and I'd illegally filmed some of his stuff online on my phone, gone on like Netflix, and I put this little thing on my Vimeo, and it was just like I think it was like a 3 4 minute reel of just bits of his work that I felt were Luke-esque, and that was when people were like, oh, okay, now I get it. And but yeah, he's really like I'm so happy that him and Jason are also getting a lot of awards. It's not just me in the
Yeah.
film. I just think like what they've done as an actor, I was really sort of like so impressed by how they just were so hungry and were dying for these roles. It's really it's great to see, you know.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
and those are the roles that people watch and they remember and they want to talk about. And
yeah, yeah,
that combined with obviously your writing, your directing, it's obviously, leads us to the big question, so BIFA being on this
yeah.
Douglas Cox, award,
Yeah.
how do you feel, as a director being on there, and how do you feel you place along with the other nominees and the films there?
Yeah. Well, I feel like I cheated a little bit because I co-directed with Sally, so I feel a bit bad. But I'm totally honest. But no, yeah, I mean Sally won't mind me saying this. This is very much my film, and it was lovely to have her on the journey.
Yeah.
No, I think it's just like there's such a history to it, and Sally was nominated for this, God, 10 years ago, and I was actually an actor in that film. I actually won a BIFA for that film. It was called My Brother the Devil. So
Okay.
I have kind of history with BIFA, and I've been on the BIFA jury and stuff, and they've been very kind to me. Someone at BIFA likes me. But yeah, it's kind of weird. It's really nice to have all these nominations and everything. And it does make you feel good. I'm a human being, and making a movie is not easy.
No.
Um, but at the same time, I think like it's very important to sort of take it in your stride and kind of understand that there's such a subjectivity to all this.
Mhm.
And, I think really I hope what these things can do is just keep bringing attention to the film because
That's it.
I'm totally unashamedly, I want my films to be seen by as many people as possible.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that. I will sell my soul to promote a movie. I don't, well, not literally, but like, I have no problem with that. I'm a big believer that films are obviously they're for us as filmmakers and everything, but really, I believe they're for audiences over a long period of time. Um, so yeah, I just feel very proud that hopefully it can get a few more eyeballs on it. And I think also there's just some great movies this year, like there's some really, really great films and really bold voices. And I think for all of the tough times that we've gone through in the last year or two with independent film and in particular British independent film, I think creatively we're in a great space because you look at a lot of the movies that are up for BIFAs and also for other awards, they're very bold,
Yeah, they are.
unique. And I think that, it's funny, I was talking to someone the other day who was really worried about the Trump presidency and they was sort of really in the doldrums about it. And I understand, I get it. I totally agree with that fear. Um, but what's very interesting, I'm fascinated with the history of film. And what's really interesting is if you look at the history of Hollywood, I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying this, that the majority of like the kind of Oscar winning or certainly mainstream films that were made by the Hollywood system that have really lasted the test of time, have changed kind of cinema, they tend to happen when you have very right-wing presidents because and they tend to get made during that time because if you and it kind of makes sense when you think about it because you need something to be angry about and you need something to push up against.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think I actually do. I'm probably one of the few people that's a bit optimistic about where indie film's going to go because I think now we really do have something to talk about. Whereas if things are a little, this is not a secret. This is a liberal mafia, right? Our industry. It's what it is. It's a left of center, left wing mafia. And and I was brought up by a couple of hippies. I'm probably as indoctrinated as everyone else is, right? I'm in the kind of tribe. I'm very aware of that. Um, but I think at the same time, like it's important to understand that if things are too easy, I think I don't know if we have anything to talk about. Do you know what I mean? So I actually think it's, I know this is my weird way of saying, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing in the long run
Mm.
that Trump is president. In terms
Yeah.
of art, don't clip
Yeah.
that. In terms of art, I don't think it's necessarily what people think.
No, no, I do agree with you. And but like you said, history is full of, periods of adversity, and then periods you'll have the creativity that comes out of them, and everything's based on something, and it's got to be some kind of sphere. So I mean, I think maybe we should be excited about what's going to come, what people are going to create, what voices are going to come out of this presidency.
I think you're absolutely right. I think Hollywood will react it
Mm,
with real passion and anger and hopefully creative anger. I
yeah.
don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. And it's not just America. You look at the conditions that Tarkovsky was working under. Like you look at like and you even go to theater. You know what I mean? Like it's really look at the time that Chekhov was in. Like, I think you do need something to push up against. I think if things are too easy and everyone is making loads of money and loads of really kind of bold stories are getting made all the time, I think there's a danger. The advantage is obvious, but there's a danger that I think it becomes sort of homogenous in a way. And it's all just one thing, and you need something to be pissed off about, don't you? As an
Oh yeah.
artist.
Oh
Yeah.
God, yeah. I mean, I've at least got five things off the top of my head that just annoyed me this morning, and that I've
Yeah.
read. It's healthy.
I really do think so. Obviously, there's a limit to it. We don't want to be constantly in a kind of really negative.
So you can't let it control you.
Yes, that's a really good way of looking at it. I think that's the best way is you be angry, but don't let it control you and I guess put it on the page or put it into your work, if you
Yeah.
can. Yeah.
Okay, right. My final question for you, because I know a lot of people are going to want to know this. You came out on Netflix yesterday.
We did, yes. Yes. We did. That's pretty amazing.
It's
Netflix
fucking
UK.
cool.
It's really cool. Yeah, no, they were very sweet. They bought the film pretty early, and I think UK Netflix is probably one of the biggest audiences for our film. I think it's a
Yeah,
perfect fit. I think in
yeah.
particular,
I
a couple.
totally agree. So
Yeah,
yeah, at what point did they come on?
they bought the film really early on. Signature, who distributed it in the UK cinemas, and them. I think they both made an offer really on. This is probably like soon after we premiered at Toronto Film Festival. So when's that? Just over a year ago, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was pretty quick. But yeah, we've had a really great run. Like we've been bought by. I mean, they're going to announce these things properly later. We've been bought by a bunch of international territories too. But yeah, I think Netflix UK is a big one, and I think in particular because of just the film itself, the subject matter. I think
hmm,
there's a younger audience in particular, I think, on Netflix that have really shown a lot of love for this film, and I think
yeah,
that's obviously really big on Netflix UK. Also, I think just from a kind of business point of view, what's really nice is that Ben stars in this film called Love at First Sight, which is a rom-com that's massive on Netflix, and then also Sally and myself did a film called The Swimmers that she made that I was acting in that was huge on Netflix too. So
yeah,
yeah, we're very happy about that. And yeah, again, like just going back to what we were saying about digital film, like, I know there's a big debate about streaming and all this stuff, and I certainly agree that, the most important thing about cinema is the cinema. Things need to be played in that dark room because that's what they were designed for. There's a reason why we're all in the sound mix for months. You need to feel that rumble in the ground when you're
yeah,
in the cinema.
yeah,
But at the same time, obviously, streaming is so essential to getting our film out there. I mean, Netflix has what, 500 million people on their platform, and why would you rail against that? I think it has to be a combination of the two. It has to be a combination of theatrical and streaming moving forward. This whole idea of pitting them against each other, I think, is just stupid. You
No,
know.
I agree with you. And I was talking to someone this morning about it as well. And, it was a talk. I was at a festival the other day about not putting your film out online and, keeping kind of the sanctity of it. I'm like, that's really all good and fine. But like you said earlier, you've made something wonderful. You've made something that represents, a part of life, a culture of people. Why the fuck wouldn't you want people to see that?
I agree with you, and I think what it is I think. because at the moment the average Joe and Josephine doesn't have big screen TVs and surround sound,
Mhm.
that I think there is a sort of a bit of, I guess a justified quibble from filmmakers is that people who are watching our films on streaming aren't watching them in their full form and power. But the truth is that that's changing very quickly, and before we know it, the average person is going to have a mini cinema in their
Yeah.
homes. We're just getting towards that point. So I think once that happens, and I think it's going to happen soon, I think filmmakers will probably um, breathe a bit more when it comes to
Yeah.
streaming.
Yeah. Okay, finally, what are you doing next?
Too many things. I need to. It's no, I was just saying something the other day. I was saying to my agent the other day, I was like, God, I should really get rid of a few projects, shouldn't I? And he's like, yeah. Um, yeah, I kind of so no, it's great. I had a few projects before Unicorns that were kind of bubbling away, and I've kept a couple. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think I have an idea of what my ideal move would be, in terms of what my next film would be. Um, you know, um, it's going to be. I'm going to do it on my own. I won't be co-directing, that's for sure. It's nothing against Sally. We'll definitely co-direct in the future, I think. But my next one is going to be kind of just me. And I guess I'm very lucky. I mean, I'm at a point in my career and life where I kind of feel like I know what I want in the workplace. So it doesn't take a long time for me to sort of go, that's what I want. There's
Yeah.
no sort of dithering.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I know ideally what it would be. Hopefully that will be the thing. But I must admit, I didn't expect the film to be quite as well received as it has been. I love the film, and I think it's great, and I'm very proud of it. But I think I was always aware that making a British indie film, there's always that danger that it just gets put in someone's shelf and never gets seen again. So it's nice that it's kind of punching above its weight a little bit. And there's a lot of new opportunity. Look, I'm open to anything, I really am. But I must admit, I think I'm probably like a lot of filmmakers who just, made like their debut. And I want to be able to express myself as much as possible,
Mm,
unfiltered. You
mm,
know, I want to have a voice.
mm.
But I must admit, I'm not a pretentious filmmaker in the sense that, I love a lot of Christopher Nolan's work as much as I do Ingmar Bergman. I don't really separate the two. I think they're both incredible in their own ways. It's just a different it's like food, it's a different flavor.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's, you know, I think I'd like to have more resources as I make more films, ideally, but I'm not averse to doing another film for this kind of budget. But yeah, I feel very lucky, but I think, the industry is in a strange spot, and it does need to, I think, go through this metamorphosis.
Mm.
And I'm one of the lucky ones where I'll be okay. But I really do think that, cinema is in a very exciting space creatively. I really
Yeah.
do believe that. And look, something like Unicorns, which is a very classic love story in some ways, but
Yeah.
I think this story, it's interesting how it got made now, because I don't know if this would have got made 4 or 5 years ago. And um, I think that's a really good sign, like
Mm.
there's something happening, I think, there's something in the water,
Yeah.
and it's new. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's
I
fresh.
like it. I think it's the next generation that's coming up as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's a
Everyone gives Gen Z so much shit, and
yeah,
don't get me wrong, there's some of it out on, but I work a lot with students and with film students, and do you know what? They are so creative. They are so open to everything, but they're also so fierce about what their voice is, and
yeah.
they won't be told otherwise. And I've got so much respect for that. And I think that is now coming up what is normally a very hierarchical, no, this is what I want and what you will do. I think it's, I think the ladder's moving and I'm really into it.
I totally agree with you. I was hanging out with some film students the other day from NFTS.
Mm-hmm.
One of mine is I know two of them very well, friends of mine, and I tell you, like, I felt like I'd finally met some kindred spirits, after years and years of being around very cynical people in the business who've been working for years and are very successful, but
Yeah,
it was nice to kind of think, oh, okay, yeah, they really don't give a fuck.
yeah,
And and I love that. And it's really, look, I really do think that like I think cinema is going to go into a space that is so unexpected. I think mainstream cinema is going to basically like implode and then come back together again. And it's already happening. And it's going
Mhm.
to be like, what? And things like genre and all these things, like everyone's going to be so confused about what makes money and what doesn't. I think that's going to be a great thing in the long run. In the
Yeah,
short run, it's going to be painful because the industry's in shock right now, post strikes, post COVID, financially it's in shock.
yeah,
Once that goes, and it will go, I think ultimately it's going to be a bit of a Wild West. And that's really the last time that's happened, certainly in Hollywood, was really the 70s.
yeah.
That's generally considered in terms of dramatic fiction filmmaking, and that's one of the best periods of American cinema. So, and I think now it's going to be even crazier because back then, the technology that they had was very limited. So a lot of what they were doing was dramas and great dramas, right? From
Mhm.
Scorsese and Milos Forman and everyone. But now you have this incredible, like, horror has become, such an incredibly mature genre now. And even the action genre and the thriller genre and the queer genre, all these sort of things I think are really bubbling, and I love it. And musical, I'm a huge musicals guy. Like, I think it's very exciting. So watch the space, audiences, but it's going to take a bit of time to get there. But I don't think it's going to take too long.
I think we're going to get there.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish I was more into musicals, but because there's some really cool sort
Yeah.
of films coming out. Have you watched The End?
No, but my mate's in it. George Mackay's in it, right?
Yeah.
My mate. Yeah, I haven't seen it. I really want to see it. Yeah. Yeah.
So I love George Mackay, and
Yeah.
I started it and I was watching it and I was like, "Come on, Sarah, you know this, you can do it." And then within 15 minutes, I was like, "I can't, I can't, I can't." I like
Okay, so
there's a block in my mind that I just need to get over.
yeah, there's a movie that's really wild that's going to split people, but and I won't say what I think of it because the filmmaker is an absolute genius. So for me, anything he does is incredible. But is Emilia Perez? And
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Everyone was talking about Amelia Perez at London.
watch it like it's yeah. Have you seen it?
Not yet.
But watch that and try if you can try and watch it in the cinema because
Okay.
it's like just him as a. Some people are going to hate it, some people are going to love it, but forget that
Yeah.
for me. Like Jacques Audiard for me is just like he's peak cinema, and I think what's in that is it's a music. Well, it's a film. It is a musical, yeah. It's many things, but
Yeah.
the point is that I think that film and then films like The Substance, like these films are just they're what I call it like fuck it films.
Yeah.
And I think that should be a new genre. It's just like fuck it, and that's really what I want to be part of going forward. You know.
Nice. Yeah. I will watch a fuck it film.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. It should have a streamer called Fuck It. Fuckit.com. Fuckitfilms.com.
I'm sure it's already been bought by somebody who is not doing the same thing with it.
Netflix, fuck it. Yeah. Whatever.
All right,
Yeah.
James, look, thank you. This has been an absolute joy.
Loved it. Thank you very much.